So you're thinking of studying literature at university, or you've just started studying literature at university and you're looking for some advice. Lucky for you, big sister Celine has 2 degrees in English literature, and I'm about to give you all of the advice that either really helped me throughout my degree or I wish I'd been told prior to my degree that I think would have really helped me, and I'm going to give them to you. I've got them written here in my beautiful trustee journal, and I've split them into 2 parts. The first part is just 2 pieces of advice for people that are thinking of applying or are in the process of applying for English literature, and then the second half will be advice for people who have already confirmed, already decided that that's what they're going to do, or they've already started at university. So let's begin. Okay, the first piece of advice, if you are considering whether or not you want to apply for literature, is you have to most of all have some form of love and like for literature. You have to like it in some way. If not that, you have to at the very least have an understanding or an appreciation of literature and the work that goes into it, for no reason other than you will not enjoy it. And if you're anything like me, if you do not enjoy the thing you're studying, you're not going to excel at it. And I'm guilty of that with modules within English literature that I personally just didn't enjoy and didn't excel that well in these specific modules, these specific classes. You need to enjoy it. There is a lot of work. It sounds like an easy degree because humanities and liberal arts, etc. It's not an easy degree. It's a pretty difficult degree. And if you don't at the very least like it or appreciate it for what it is, I think you should try and apply for something else. But if you're watching this video, you probably really do love literature, so I just had to put that out there. Number 2, find a university that fits you. That means don't just apply to a university because people have told you it's a fantastic university. Don't just apply to a university because your family is an alumni, or because everyone you know goes to this university, or because it's pretty, or because it's big, or because this, or because of that. Apply to the university that you truly believe fits you best, which means when you're looking at universities, really do your research at what the course will offer you, not just what the university as a whole has to offer you. Look at what the English literature course that you are selecting to study there has to offer you. I was looking at universities that were a lot higher on the Russell Group scaling than the one that I went to. Russell Group, for any of my American viewers, is the equivalent of Ivy Leagues. The Russell Groups is what we call Ivy Leagues. And it was, some of the universities I was looking at were a lot higher on the Russell Group scaling, but their courses, to me personally, felt a bit shit. Like, they just felt they weren't for me. They didn't appeal to me. The courses felt like they were focusing too much on eras of literature or types of literature that I didn't enjoy, I didn't want to read, I didn't really care about, I didn't want to study, had nothing to do with what I wanted to focus on within my studies. So I pushed them to the side. I put them away. It's not an easy job looking for a university, and if it's been really easy for you, you probably haven't looked into them deep enough. You need to look at the breakdown of their courses, at the breakdown of the modules that they have to offer you, the classes they have to offer you, the reading lists if they're available. Truly look and understand whether or not you're going to enjoy the teaching, whether or not you're going to enjoy the assignments and the assessments and the examinations, because it goes back to the first point that I made. If you're not enjoying it, or you do not feel like you're learning anything from it, you're wasting 3 to 4 years of your life. So really, truly put so much effort into researching these universities and these courses, because this is the rest of your life. If you're in the UK, that's 9.2k you're spending every single year. If you're in America, that's a lot more. Really work hard to know whether or not the university fits what you want to study, rather than whether or not the university is as prestigious as you would like it to be. Moving on to people who have already decided they're studying literature or have just started their degree or are about to start their degree, let's get into all of the advice I have for that. Number 1, and perhaps the most important one, please do the reading. 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 The assigned reading is so important to your understanding of these books. The assigned reading is so important to your understanding of the discussions, to getting the grade, if for nothing else, but also because a lot of the books that you get assigned at university, a lot of the assigned reading that you get is very likely going to be books you never would have heard of before. Books you wouldn't have found on TikTok or on Instagram or on YouTube. Books that are really fascinating, books that are really interesting. And sometimes you're not going to enjoy them. Sometimes they're going to be shit. But do the reading anyway, at the very least to broaden your literary horizons, and at the most to understand what this module is about, to understand what your teachers are telling you, and then do the secondary reading. When your tutors assign you a main reading list and then at the bottom there's a secondary reading list, do the reading. I never did the secondary reading, and then when it came to my exams and it came to my revisions and it came to my final theses, I was searching the world for secondary material, for peer-reviewed texts, just to help me better analyze and understand and criticize the text that I wanted to discuss. please do the reading. If not the secondary, please do the primary reading. It's so important. No amount of ChatGPT summaries are ever going to make you truly notice things in a book or understand a text better than just reading it yourself. Number 2. And again, this is going to sound like a very cliche piece of advice. I'm going to get more into the grits of it later, but do not skip your classes. Even if you haven't done the reading, do not skip your classes. If your degree is structured anything like mine, you're going to have lectures, you're going to have modules, and you're going to have some workshops. If you want to skip your lectures, I still would advise you against it because the lectures really tie into context and analysis. Do not skip the seminars. Seminars are structured so that your entire degree is split and segregated into smaller groups of people, essentially like focus groups. And there'll probably be no more than 10 people in each of these seminar classes. And it's really an opportunity to sit with people your age, people in your class, and a teacher who is an expert of this book and an expert of this module, and just discuss it for an hour or 2 hours, depending on your university, depending on your class. So even if you haven't read the text, you will still learn a lot of important things about this text that might make you want to read the text or might make you feel better about not reading the text, but you will have such fantastic discussions. And if you have read the text, absolutely don't skip these seminars. I personally enjoyed my seminars most out of every single thing I did in my degree because there are discussions that you have that will open your mind to things in a book and a text or a poem or a play that you may never have thought of before. So certain motifs, certain tropes, certain themes, certain moments within a text that you felt like were just there to fill a page that to someone else, another class member of yours, thought was the most important part of a text, and after discussion you realized this is actually a really important part of the text. Seminars are fantastic. Seminars are fascinating. They're interesting, especially if you've chosen the right university, especially if you've chosen a module that best fits you, especially if you've chosen a class that you think you'll find interesting. So when you've read the book and you're part of these discussions, and in the book you really notice the motif of tears throughout the text, and someone says, well, actually, I really noticed the consistent use of feet in the text, and you're like, feet? I never noticed feet. And then they explain to you why they feel like feet really helped push this story forward. It's so important. It's so important. And then there's the teacher there, the instructor there, to help ask questions, to help draw out thoughts for all of you that you might not have thought about, to help explain the context of the text or facts about the author. This module moderator, your teacher, your lecturer, is an expert on this book, is an expert on this module. They will have read more than secondary material, and they will be able to assist every thought and every opinion and every idea you have, either to fruition or to a stage where you can develop it yourself. I think seminars are so important. Seminars and lectures and workshops, they are all so important. Please don't skip them. Number 3, figure out a note-taking technique that works best for you. I've cycled through so many different types of note-taking techniques, and I realized for me personally, it just worked best to write down exactly what was being said because that's exactly how I wanted to remember it. But I have friends and I have colleagues who have keys. They have like a triangle will mean this type of sentence, and then they'll do the triangle and then they'll write like an important thing that was said, and that's easier for them. Number 4, I think, is so important. I don't care how much of a wide reader you are. Do not think that you are too good for websites like SparkNotes. That does not mean use SparkNotes as a supplementary for reading the text. It means do not think that there is nothing SparkNotes can do for you if you have already read the text. SparkNotes is a really fascinating, all the other websites like SparkNotes, by the way, but SparkNotes is the only one I can remember right now. Like all of these other sites, it's really helpful in just sort of holding your hand through this. So yeah, you've read the text. Yeah, you've identified a lot of themes. Yeah, you've identified a lot of motifs, a lot of different literary devices that happen throughout the text. You've already had your discussions. SparkNotes is more than likely to at least raise one thing you may not have noticed before. SparkNotes is also useful for people who are brand new in their degree, who don't necessarily know all of the literary devices, things that you learn if you're in the UK in A-levels or if you're in America just in senior year and junior year, things that you learn at school. Very helpful for understanding basic literary devices. While you're at university, a lot of the time, they just assume that you are an adult and you have your own free time, so you will look up all of the more complex literary devices. Websites like SparkNotes are helpful in holding your hand to understanding some of the more complex literary devices. So do not underestimate what these helper sites have to do, but they are not there as supplementaries for the book or the play or the text. Read the text And utilize Spark Notes. It always helps. It's just like having a friend helping you through your studies. Number 5, and another important one in my opinion, allow yourself to think differently. This ties back to what I was saying about seminar discussions, where if you're reading a text and you notice something and it really resonates with you and you think it's an important part of the text, but no one else has discussed it, and you may even just not see anything about it online, dare to say it. Dare to mention it in your class, because you mention it, someone else who may have been thinking the same as you would have been like, I saw that too, but I didn't know if it was worth discussing. And even if no one agrees with you, so long as you are able to structure your argument in a way where you have the evidence that you can provide and you can develop upon this evidence to say why it makes you feel a certain way, you've just thought outside of the box. And for all you know, you've just gained yourself an extra amount of points grades-wise over a lot of other people because you've allowed people to see things from a different perspective. Literature is a fascinating, beautiful form of art where you are always going to see something new. Every time you read it, you are going to identify something new, or you're going to choose to interpret something differently. So at the very, very, very least, you may have just opened up someone else's mind or had a fun discussion. Even if your lecturer then ends up going, really fascinating idea, but actually wrong because this thing in the book proves you wrong. You had a really interesting conversation and you challenged yourself to think wider, to think broader, to think bigger. And it's fun and it's exciting. And again, you're still a student. There's no such thing as a wrong idea. That's what ideas are. You have an idea, and if it's wrong, it's still not wrong because you've allowed your mind to expand. You've allowed yourself to think more. Really good piece of advice, I think, me. Hold on that one. Number 6 applies to when you're doing your assignments, when you're doing your essays, your papers, etc. Follow the rubric, but bend it. Does that make sense? So follow the rubric. Do what's expected of you. Do what you're being told. Do the things that you have to do in order to achieve a certain grade or a certain marking. But bend it so you're slightly outside of the rubric. Not in terms of if the rubric tells you you have to write this and then you just don't write it at all. But if the rubric tells you, write about the way sadness is defined through color, write about the way sadness is defined through color. But then you can also be, depending on the text, say, but I think sadness is actually defined through weather far more than it's designed through color. So while color is important to the text, color is actually a supplementary device to help us understand how weather. And that will be really interesting. And your examiners and your graders and your lecturers and your tutors will love reading that because, like I said in my previous points, it's just opening up discourse for something other people may not have noticed. As long as you're following the rules, but you're bending what is necessarily expected of you within the frameworks of these rules, you're still fine, and you're enjoying doing these essays and these assignments more because you're allowing yourself to discuss things that you may have noticed in the same way as a seminar that other people's have not mentioned in these questions, but you're doing it while also remaining through the framework of the examination. So I think that's something I had a lot of fun with throughout my degree. Every single time I got a question, like the way it works in UK modules is when it's time for an assignment, you're given a list of different questions that you can answer as essentially title pages for your assignment, for your paper. And I never liked any of them, so I would try and stick to that rubric and then create a question of my own because of something I really wanted to talk about in the text. And I would email my tutors and I'd be like, hey, I really, really want to discuss this in a book, and I know it's not on the rubric, I know it's not part of the questions, but I just wanted to get your permission to do this. Once they give you approval, they're the ones grading your paper. So if he says, I think this is a great idea, make sure you follow all of the rules, but this can be what your paper is about. That's what my paper was about. And that's why I was consistent with getting pretty decent grades, because I was always looking for something I knew I could discuss and something I could talk about. And a plus side of it is you form a really great relationship with your tutors and your teachers in the way that if you do fuck up at some point, or you do screw up at some point, or you need an extension, etc., they know you're not a lazy student. They know you like what you're doing. They know you know what you're doing. They know you know what you're talking about. So if you're asking for an extension, or you're asking for help, or you're asking for special consideration, extenuating circumstances, they can trust themselves to give this to you because they trust you as a student to know you enjoy the subject, you like studying, you hand in the essays, you do all of this. It pays to be a teacher's pet at university. Cool, being a teacher's pet at school, at high school, you're going to get bullied for that shit. You're going to be annoying. You're going to be reminding them about homework. At university, the teacher's pets, or just like the nerds, are usually the ones that do best. And that's where I thrived my most, because I was finally able to just be a teacher's pet and a nerd without being like laughed at for it. Number 7, I wish I knew this. I wish I knew this at university. And the exact structure of this sentence is actually something my boss said to me on my very first day of work a year and a half ago that has resonated with me to this day, which is the only stupid questions are the ones you never ask. Ask the questions. Like I said, it pays to be a nerd, it pays to beg it off your teacher, it pays not just for like your social standing within the course, social I mean like with your teachers, but it pays for your own education. The only stupid question is the one you never ask. If you don't understand something, if you're curious about something, if you want to know more about something, if you think there's an alternative way to discuss or to look at something, ask. Almost all the time, you're going to receive a positive response. You're going to receive an answer that helps you. It drives you forward. No one's going to laugh at you for not knowing the answer to a question. Half of the time, most people also had that question and just didn't want to ask it, and they're so grateful that you've asked it. The only stupid questions are the ones you never ask. Ask those questions. I sort of touched on this earlier, but the next one is learn about literary techniques and literary devices. They are so important. Not just for getting the grades in your essays and in your exams, but just for understanding a text wider. Once you learn and understand techniques and devices throughout a text, it is a lot easier to understand more difficult text, because sometimes you'll be like, why the hell does this author keep mentioning this or keep doing this? Once you understand what literary devices are and what their intentions are throughout a text, you understand that a lot of things in a book are intentional. This whole, sometimes the curtains were just blue, I don't like that, because a lot of the time the curtains aren't just blue. A lot of the time there is a reason the curtains are blue. A lot of the time Curly's wife had red lipstick and red dresses on, not because she thought she looked good in red, but because it was necessary to the wider meaning of the entire story and the entire plot. Learn the devices, learn the techniques, because they will assist you in understanding the text, and then you sound better and you're more likely to get better grades in your essays and your exams. This next one, I would give anything to go back in time and sock younger me in the jaw for not listening to her teachers when they gave her this piece of advice. Free time is not free time. Let me explain. A literature degree does not have very many contact hours, particularly in the final year of university. Final year of university, I think I maybe had a total of 4 hours worth of lectures and modules on campus. Everything else was called independent learning. And the first thing they did when I started in my first year of university was they told us, you only have 20 contact hours this week, let's say. No, whatever, it's an example, but you need to be having 40 hours of independent learning. And I was like, I can do it. You can't. Trust me. If you only have university 2 or 3 times a week, it's not because your teachers are lazy. It's not because the course is so easy and so simple that you don't need to be there. It is because there is so much work that you need to do independently for this course in order to succeed. There is so much reading you're going to need to do. Again, if you're at the UK and you're at a university like mine, I had 3 modules every semester. And for each module, you have assigned reading every week. That means I had 3 books to read every single week at the same time. Some of those books were 1,000 pages long. You do not have free time to play around. This free time that you have is independent learning, to sit, to read the book, to study the book, to analyze the book, to think of your talking points for this book, to do research into this book so that when it comes to the lectures and it comes to the seminars, you fully understand this text to the point where you can discuss it. Again, if you haven't done that, still go to your classes, but free time is not free time. Your weekend and your evenings are your only free time. Trust me, make the most of it. It's fine. It's fine to bury yourself in a hole and study. It's just a few years of your life, and then you get that degree and you get out of it and you're fine. But free time is not free time. Free time is not free time. And I really wish I knew this. I really wish I knew this, because if you just look at your syllabus, they specify how much independent learning time you need to allocate yourself every single week. And I ignored it. I think I maybe did like 4 hours of independent learning in my first year of university. And let me tell you, I live to regret it. Absolutely, under no circumstances whatsoever do you utilize ChatGPT. Absolutely, under no circumstances whatsoever do you utilize ChatGPT or AI to help you research a topic, to help you write an essay, to help you summarize a book. Absolutely, in no way utilize ChatGPT and AI. Ignoring even the environmental impact, the social impact, the political impact, the artistic impact of ChatGPT, you're also just dumbing yourself down. Do not. The point of studying literature is because you enjoy the subject. You enjoy the degree. You enjoy literature. You enjoy reading. Please read the text. Identify what you need to. If you fuck up, you fuck up. That's how you learn. That is the learning process in life. You need to mess up. You need to screw up a few times. Do not utilize ChatGPT or AI. Please, for the love of God, do not. Also, as a literature student, you're going to have appreciation for literature and humanities and art. ChatGPT, more often than not, does plagiarize and rip off a lot of artists. So either way, ethically, financially, economically, environmentally, ChatGPT is a mess. But especially to help you for a degree, what is the point of putting yourself in years worth of debt, tens to hundreds of thousands of debt, to not even do the work, to not even do the studying? And I'm very strict on this. I'm very I sound angry because it bothers me because, look, these tools can be helpful for assistance. These tools can be helpful if you can't find anything online for a specific motif that you're looking for. You can, I guess, look it up on ChatGPT. But if it's on ChatGPT, it's probably on Google somewhere. It's probably in a research document somewhere. You just have to work for an extra 10, 20 minutes to find it. But, who cares? Not everything in life has to come easy to you. Do not, as a student and as a lover and an appreciator of art and the humanities, do not just flake on it for the sake of it being easy. A degree is not easy. University is not easy. Writing essays are not easy. That's the point. You're supposed to challenge yourself. It's supposed to be difficult. It's supposed to be difficult. Do not, under any circumstances, use ChatGPT unless you truly cannot find the answer anywhere else and you really genuinely just do not have the time. But even if you do not have the time, don't let ChatGPT write the essay for you. What I found throughout my degree is that grading is very subjective because you're going to be graded by your different module instructors, your different lecturers, your different teachers, unless it's an exam. But for the assignments and the essays, get to know your lecturer, get to know your modulator, get to know your teacher that's going to be grading your essay. Not just so you can cater to them, but just so you understand what it is they personally expect from you in this essay. And it goes back to follow the rubric but bend it. All teachers have the same rubric, but again, because it's so subjective, every teacher is going to want or hope to see a specific thing from you. And if you listen to them and you pay attention to them or you even discuss it with them, you'll know what that thing is, and it will allow you to bend that rubric in a way that you enjoy and in a way that you also know will help your ultimate grade. Start that thesis early. When they give you a deadline to submit your title, submit your title. You can rework that title, but they just want to know that you're thinking about it and you want to get started on it. But the second you've made a decision on what it is you want it to be, get started. Not on writing. Get started on choosing the books you want to study. Get started on choosing the secondary material. Do all of your research. Be creative as well. This is the one essay, the one final project that you have a massive word count on. Be creative. My final thesis for my master's, I had an entire chapter within that thesis comparing pieces of art that were reflections of the book. Be creative because all of it, it's all art and it will all tie back to literature. So get started in your final year once you've figured out your thesis. Get started on it as soon as you possibly can. Allocate time for it. Separate your schedule. Separate your timetable. You have far less contact hours in final year, so you have a lot more independent study time. Start on it as soon as you possibly can because that first draft is going to be absolute dog piss. You're going to need to rewrite it quite a few times. So start on it as early as you can so you can get the foundations and the frameworks down and you can truly just perfect it to what it is that you want it to be. That is all of my advice for anyone who wants to study English literature. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if any of this advice was useful to you. I feel like this is going to be a really long video. I'm so sorry. Good luck, guys. I love you.